Recently, it was the Heritage Open Days in Norfolk and Suffolk, and as part of this I visited a number of places. Among them are these two, that although not officially connected, do make great complementary pieces to each other, with even their own staff highly recommending that you visit both of them. You can visit them in either order you like, but I will be covering them in the order that I visited them for ease for myself. The first is the Mincarlo of Lowestoft, a former fishing boat that once plied its trade from the port there, but now has found a new life as a tourist attraction. And the second is the Lowestoft Maritime Museum. The Mincarlo can be found in Lowestoft Marina. It is on the south side of the bridge, about a 10-minute walk from the train station and a 15-minute walk from the bus station. There is also a car park quite nearby. Entrance to the ship is free and it is open from 10:30 to 3:30 Monday to Saturday, from the 1st of April to the 30th of October every year. The Mincarlo started life as a fishing trawler in 1961 and served this role until it was retired as the fishing industry died away in this area, and, as they told us on board, there is now no longer any fishing vessels leaving Lowestoft. For a time it found a new life as a standby vessel brought in case the crews needed evacuating from the North Sea oil rigs. It did start this life shortly before it, but this grew to prominence after the Piper Alpha disaster in 1988. When its working life came to an end, like so many Lowestoft ships, it ended up on the scrap heap, before being saved and bought for the sum of just £1. It is now refurbished and part of the Linda Eva and Mincarlo Charitable Trust, with the Linda Eva another older fishing boat, this time from the 1930s, that can be found in Great Yarmouth, and a ship we will visit one day. I'm not going to go into too much detail on the history of the ship here, as I feel it's probably worth a video completely of its own at some point. Entrance to the ship is free, and you'll be warmly welcomed when you arrive by one of the ship's volunteers, who will look after you and show you around, some of whom are former trawlermen themselves. In my case, our tour was given by a former member of the Mincarlo's sister ship, which was pretty much identical in every detail, so he was able to give great depth to the tour. To avoid people running into each other in the tight quarters, the ship operates on a one-way system that's very easy to follow, but due to it being a former working fishing vessel, there is inevitably an access issue. They have done all they can to rectify this, turning several ladders into steps, but anyone who suffers from mobility issues will struggle to get around, and will probably find certain parts of the ship inaccessible. The tour will take you from the aft of the ship forward, beginning with the crew's personal quarters, showers, toilets, the galley, and the eating area, where, while out on sea, they ate in shifts due to the small amount of spaces. When the ship was fully crewed in its heyday, it carried around 12 men, for 10 days at a time, sailing up to the North Sea in summer, and even further past Norway in winter, to fish the deep North Sea trenches. After this comes the sleeping quarters, where the crew caught what sleep they could while out at sea, anything from an hour and a half to 4 hours. The regular crew shared bunks between shifts, while the captain, first mate and engineer had more private cabins. This is also the main area where the crew would socialise with each other. Next comes the engine room, where you can look down on the original and still working engine. They run it every Wednesday. Unfortunately, this was not the day when I visited, so sadly I can't show you it in action. But between the tour guide and the video playing in here, you can learn a lot. And it's great to think that not only the ship, but the engine itself was entirely built in Lowestoft. And as from here you make the transition from the areas mostly made for the crew to relax in, to the more general working areas of the ship. It's also here you will find the captain's private toilet, shower and cabin, both located next to the bridge if he was ever needed. The view from the bridge might seem slightly obstructed by the bow of its ship itself, but this would not have been a problem when it was active, as the weight of the ice and fish that would have been in it pulled the front down and gave you a much more unrestricted view. The bridge is still filled with the equipment they would have used when out fishing, including this device here which was used to track the shoals of fish. But also there is a few updates in here from when it was a standby vessel. After this you are taken out onto the bridge wings, and then to where the ship's lifeboats would have been launched from. Thankfully, in the case of the Mincarlo, they were never used. Then it is down towards the bow of the ship, where, when out at sea, the real work would have taken place. Hauling in nets that weighed close to a ton when full, on a water-covered deck, moving with the rolling of the ocean. And although, to look around it now, it seems fairly free, this would not have been the case when it was working. it would have been covered in these boxes and baskets that needed to be filled with fish that were then gutted and sent down into the fish store that's under your feet. It now acts as a museum not just to the ship, but to the fishing industry in this area as well as a whole. This is where the tour section of the visit really comes to an end, and you're free to go down the steps and look around the museum as long as you like. There is a video playing in there that was very informative, as well as lots of newspaper clippings, charts, dioramas about Lowestoft's fishing fleet and everything else. So take your time and have a good look around here, I would suggest. As I said before, entrance to the ship is free, but donations are always gladly welcome to keep the running costs and the maintenance there. They do also sell badges and a couple of books if you want a keepsake of your visit. When you've finished here, I think the next stop to round out your day and also get a much more rounded view of the maritime history in Lowestoft would be to head north across the bridge and along Walpole Road to Lowestoft Maritime Museum. It's only a 4-minute drive and there is a free car park just across the road. There is also a bus that takes you nearer to it if you look into it. But of course, if you'd rather stretch your legs, it's about a 25-minute walk, although I'll be honest with you, it's not the best walk in the world. You will be mostly going past the large Birdseye factory that now calls the town home. Entrance to the museum costs £2 for adults, 50p for children and £1 for concessions. It's open 10 AM to 4 PM every day of the week from the 29th of April until the end of their season on October the 28th. When I went there, it was Heritage Week, so entrance was free. Much like the Mincarlo, you'll be welcomed by friendly, enthusiastic volunteers, who, after giving you a little talk on the museum, telling you about the old lighthouse that once stood in Lowestoft, as well as some general history of the area, you'll be sent off to take as long as you like to walk through the museum, and there is much to see here. One visit might not be enough. I certainly plan to go back next time I'm in the area to look around. The museum covers all aspects of maritime history in the area, starting with a great and detailed collection of model ships that were all made by one man over a course of 20 years. The museum is filled with models like this and dioramas as well. It'd be impossible to list them all here, so I'm not even going to try. The first section is largely about the town's fishing history and will help add a little more context to your time on the Mincarlo. Or, if you're doing these visits the other way around, going to the ship will help bring into perspective just how cramped the space these fishermen of Lowestoft had to work in. There is a small cinema area where you can watch a number of short films about the fishing life and the men's times on the boats in the area. Next is a display about one of the area's most interesting residents, Sir Christopher Sidney Cockerell, the inventor of the hovercraft, with a mock-up of his workshop and prototype on display. This leads you into the section on boat building and the other connected industries that once flourished in Lowestoft. Don't miss this side room, although it does look like it's set up mostly for school visits. There is also a great and very tragic display about a number of the local boats that were lost at sea, often with all hands over the years. In fact, as you look around, you'll find several items on display that have been salvaged from the sea, including this propeller and this ship's bell from the Barrack Guardian that sunk off Lowestoft in 1829. Next comes a section on the area during the wars, mostly the First and Second World War, but there is also some earlier items here as well, including artefacts believed to have come from the Battle of Sale Bay, off the coast of what is now Southwold. There is also a display on Thomas Crisp and his actions that saw him awarded the Victoria Cross. They also have his death plaque on display, something that was given to the family of every man killed in the First World War. And they also have fragments from some of the shells fired on Lowestoft during its bombardment in 1916. I've already done presentations on both of these topics, and the link should be on screen roughly around now if you want to see those. On the opposite side of the room there is a display about the Navy Patrol Service in the Second World War. It's not that detailed, but given the organisation has its own museum only a few hundred yards away, this shouldn't be a real shock. The final section of the museum is a mix of stories and awards for the local RNLI and a collection of medals won by locals, both during the wars and for service at sea. There's some great stories to be found here, and I've got several ideas for videos from my visit. Among them, slightly hidden away, is a rather unusual one, the Dunkirk Medal, an unofficial medal awarded by the town of Dunkirk itself to all those who took part in Operation Dynamo, the evacuation from Dunkirk. This was awarded to William F. Sanson, whose medals from the British government can also be found there as well. Once you've done in this room, this will largely bring you to the end of the museum. You exit through the same door you entered in, and there you will find a small gift shop. I bought 3 books on the Lowestoft lifeboat from 1801 to 1964, so look forward to a few presentations on that topic in the very near future. And with that you'll be done with a small but incredibly packed museum that I would recommend to anyone visiting the Lowestoft area when it's open. It's absolutely amazing, and it is so packed full of stuff I definitely will be returning to take a better look. Even speaking to one of the staff members there, he more or less said every time he walks around he sees something new, so as a guest you'll certainly see a lot and learn a lot. I hope you've enjoyed this presentation. A link to the museum's website can be found in the description below, as well as links to any pictures I've used which were not mine. Please feel free to like and subscribe if you wish. This was a visit to the Mincarlo and the Lowestoft Maritime Museum, and this was a little bit of history.